Hi, I'm Devin Varner with Varner Equipment in Delta, Colorado. Today, we ran into a little issue with something we were setting up for a customer, and it's something that comes up actually quite often. We were going to try to show this the best that we can so that a customer can look at this and kind of make an informed decision on his own about what he wants to do and what size tractor he actually needs. One of the biggest questions we always get, we have a lot of people around here that are starting to move away from the little small square bales into a 3x3 square bale, a 3x4 round or square bale, a 4x4 square bale. These bales are going to be anywhere from a 3x3, takes a pretty dang good one to be in the 800-900 pounds area, a lot of them in the 700-800 pounds. 3x4 takes a pretty darn good one to be 12, 13, 1400 pounds, a lot of them in the 1,000 to 1,200 pound area. 4x4 bale takes a dang good one to weigh a ton, a lot of them weigh 17, 18. But I get a lot of guys that want to move that bale around because they can buy those bales. Those bales are available to be bought over little square bales. So they got a neighbor that's got a 4x4 baler or whatnot, and they want to buy 4x4 bales. And they got a real small place. They only want a 35, 40 horsepower tractor, but they want something to be able to handle those bales. The key word in that statement is always handle. There's a big difference between being able to lift it and a big difference between being able to carry it and being able to handle it to the point to where you're not tearing up the tractor. A lot of dealers that are running around right now are one of two things. You either got a dealer that knows what they're talking about, knows the capacities of the tractors, knows what you need and is going to sell you the right product, or you got a dealer that really don't know at all what they're talking about. They don't know anything or don't have any real world actual knowledge about it. All they have is a spec sheet sitting in front of them, and they see that a loader specs at 2,000 pounds, you should be able to handle an 1,800 pound bale. One of the biggest things that we see all the time is a guy coming in and be like, oh, well, I got a 35 horsepower tractor. I want to buy a 40 horsepower tractor, a 45 horsepower tractor, and I want to be able to move and handle these big bales. I want these big bales to be able to be stacked. I want to be able to unload them off of a trailer. I want to be able to put them anywhere that I want them to be so that we can go ahead and we can sell them and we can feed them to our animals. At the moment, I've got two tractors out here that we are doing for a very, very, very similar situation. We've got a 35 horsepower Mahindra. We also got a 40 horsepower Mahindra. These two are both of the same series of tractor. This is a 1635, this is a 1640, brand new tractors. If you read the literature on them, these two loaders spec identically, even though this is just a hair smaller horsepower tractor. And I bet you if you take a tape measure out, I would bet this tractor is just a hair smaller because it's 3-cylinder over 4-cylinder. These tractors handle the same amount of weight very, very, very differently with no fluid in it. So what we're going to try to show to you, we're going to try to show you how these two tractors handle it differently with a very nominal amount of weight. We've got roughly 150 gallons of water, give us roughly 1,200 pounds, 1,250 pounds of water. With that, we should be able to make some pretty good assessments off of what can be done as far as, can this tractor handle it? Can this tractor not handle it? Are we being a little hard on it? Are we not being a little hard on it? And the other thing that I want you to be able to learn with this, I want you to be able to know that you should be able to take this down to any dealer you're going to buy, whether it's us, whether it's some of our competitors here locally, or whether it's any dealer in North America for that matter. And you should be able to ask them, hey, you know, your tractor says that it'll lift this is what I need to lift. Get something like this, get a tank of water, get a bale, lift it up and see how the tractor handles it. Because I guarantee you it's a lot different than how they spec, and the specs are written for a certain reason. And I'll get into that here in a little bit, why the specs are wrote the way they are, but the specs are not the true lifting of the tractor. They're a point at where they can make a mechanical reference to give you an exact lift capacity of that tractor, and that's what needs to be changed a little bit, or needs to be thought about or explained to you whenever you're looking at buying one. We're going to get into that here in just a second. The specs of all the loaders are spec'd at the pivot pin, which is right down here at the bottom where your tool carrier hooks onto the loader arm. That's where all of these loaders spec, and for good reason. The manufacturers are building the loader. They have no idea what the customer is going to put on there, whether he's going to put a bucket, a grapple bucket, a postal digger, set of pallet forks, whatever it is going to be. They can't really give you a spec anywhere else other than that pin because they don't know of what the application is going to be away from the loader. But that is one true point on all of them, is that little pin, and so that's where they spec them all. This particular loader specs at around 1,680 pounds at that pivot pin. So with that being said, if you took these forks out of this tank of water, you put this fork over the top of this tank, it would become a lot closer to lifting what that spec would be from the top as it would be from the bottom going under it, sitting out past the end. Right now, we've got 42-inch pallet forks on here, and we're 48 inches away with the end of that water tank from that pivot point, not including the weight of those pallet forks, 60, 70, 80 pounds, depending on your implement. You get a bigger bucket, the bucket might be 200, 300, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, and a lot of your capacity gets eaten up in just the bucket, let alone anything else. But for what we're doing today, this is gonna give us a real good idea what we're going at. The other thing that I wanted to point out, back to these bigger bales of hay, not all areas in North America are like ours, but ours here in Western Colorado, 90% of the fields that are here are corrugated. So we have a 4-inch deep, 4-inch wide ditch running down the fields every 30 inches. So we have 30 inches in a ditch, 30 inches in a ditch, 30 inches in a ditch, because we flood irrigate and everything runs down these watermarks to make sure we can get water to every spot all the way down to the end. It's terrible on machinery. Machinery wasn't built for it. Front ends weren't built for it. It's something that's just really hard on equipment, sitting out there bouncing across those ditches all the time, but it's something that we have to deal with here. So once again, when a guy comes in and asks me, well, what size tractor do I need? Well, now, can we handle this on flat ground? Yes. Can we lift that to full height on flat ground? Yes. Can we take that amount of weight and handle it 365 days a year, full out, full capacity? No. Can we take that amount of weight and take it out into a corrugated field and run it across the corrugated field picking up bales every day? No. And the biggest thing we're going to find with that is going to be in the front end of the tractor. This tractor is not built like a bigger tractor is. When you go up, for instance, with Mahindra has it, as soon as you get to a 4540, 4550, they're going to have a total different front end under them than what these compact tractors have under them. This tractor has an axle coming out into a form of a differential, dropping down in a knee, and then it drops out into another differential and turns out to your spindle. This system is weak on that actual casting where the power is getting transferred down to the tire. If you go look at a big tractor is built like a semi-truck. It's built like a pickup. It's got upper and lower ball joints with an axle shaft running through those upper and lower ball joints into an outside planetary that runs your wheel. Now you've got a full cast axle out there with upper and lower ball joints, and your power is being distributed through an axle into a planetary. That system still breaks, and that system is a way better system for handling that kind of weight in our ground. Not saying that it won't work in other people's ground. There's guys that get along with it and handle it all day long. But for here, this system, if you were going to put that amount of weight on it, and you were going to tear off, like this field that's behind me, if you were going to tear off across that field and do that day in, day out, we will work on the front end for you. It will fail. And the timing on it will be just how hard you push it and how much weight you put on there as far as how long that will last. I've got guys that go real slow and real easy. They get along with stuff just fine. Next guy pushes her pretty hard, and it's something that we will work on. But what I wanted to show you with this tank, like I said before, this has about 150 gallons of water in it. You do the math on that, we're right around 1,200 pounds. I think it had to be 153 gallons or something like that to get us right where we wanted to be, but we're really close. We've got just a set of WorkSaver 242 pallet forks on it, which is a 2,000 pound 42-inch pallet fork. And I'm going to show you how this tractor acts with no ballast in the rear tires. And that's the next thing that we're going to talk about, is going to be the ballasting issue of it. But I'm going to show you how this handles before we ballast it. And then this particular tractor is already sold and the customer has ordered it with ballast in it. We're going to put ballast in the tires We're going to show you what the how much of a different animal it actually is with it. And then in the same token, we're going to flip it around to the 1635, which specs the same, but obviously is a little bit different. And I'll show you the difference between them two, even though they're supposed to be the same. And there'll be some people that will comment on here and say, well, it's the hydraulic pressure is not the same. We're assuming that it is. I have not stuck a gauge in there and made sure that this relief valve is cutting out at 2200 PSI and that this relief valve is cutting out at 2200 PSI. Yes, that is a possibility. There's a possibility that this is set 50 or 100 pounds off of this one, and that's the difference in them. But when you look at the geometry in the loader, they are definitely different. This loader is a shorter frame from here to here. It's also shorter from here to here. I'm not a mechanical engineer to be able to run those numbers and tell you where that would be out on it, but it does play a big factor in it. And we'll show you the difference on what it'll be here real quick. So I'm going to just start this tractor, and I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to kind of show you a couple things how this tractor acts with a little bit of without being ballasted. Once again, this is a 1640, just standard stock tractor, has nothing done to it, has nothing changed on it, just right from the manufacturer that way. So at a full out idle, if you go into here, full idle, no problem with that. We can lift that up. We can kind of tip it, but we can lift that up just fine. Now when you want to see where the difference will come in on this at how light the rear end of this tractor is, I'll show you here. I'm going to get that down a little bit. Right here, if I just drop this just a little bit, later take a picture, hold that right on these rear tires. Watch these rear tires when I drop this just a little bit. You can see this tractor get light in the rear end. You can see it lift it right off the ground, and then it'll set right back down again. With that being said, this little tractor will sure lift it. I can lift that amount of weight. I can move that amount of weight in four-wheel drive, but the front end is carrying the entire weight of the tractor and it's carrying the entire weight of the loader. So that's where we come back into ballasting the tractor. Some guys don't think they need it. Some guys think that everything should have it. It's got its place. There's guys that do a lot of lawn work that don't want the compaction or the extra weight on it. There's guys that haul the tractors all over that don't want the extra weight. But if you're looking to push the loader up there to the very top end, which pretty much everybody does, this tractor has to have some ballasting in it. What we put a product in the rear wheels called rim guard. We will pump that into the back. These tires are going to hold, I didn't look up the exact size before we came out here, but 45, 50 gallons per tire. Rim guard is 11 or 10.8 pounds per gallon. So if you figure roughly we're going to put 100 gallons in there, so we're roughly 1,000 pounds for real easy figuring. This tractor will act like a totally different animal with 1,000 pounds of ballast in the back of it. Then you get a guy that will even hang an implement off the back of it, bale spear, box blade, rotary mower, backhoe, and you throw another 1,000 pounds off the back of it, total different animal. Handle everything completely different. And so when you go to the question, will the tractor handle that weight? When it's set up that way, I would venture to say yes, it will handle that. It will lift it, it would carry it, it will set it down safely and not tip the tractor over. Right now, I would tell you this tractor will not handle 1,200 pounds on the front end. The way it's set, it's kind of sketchy to drive it. Front end is really, really, really light on it. Just moving this tank over here, it's really light. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take this tractor off of it real quick, and we're gonna put the other tractor on. We'll be right back. All right, so now I switched tractors. This is that 1635. And once again, guys, this is a tractor that this loader specs at 1,680 pounds. Identically set up, no fluid in it, just the loader, same pallet forks, same tank of water. I want you to see how this tractor acts differently than that one did. trying to show you with that, the specs aren't always right. And that if you're a customer looking to purchase one of these smaller compact tractors and they have a spec on it of some ungodly number of 2,500 pounds, before you buy that tractor, any dealer that's worth their salt could set up this situation for you with something very easily. Whether it be a pallet of bale and twine, something, they would be able to set this up so that you could see that tractor actually lift what they say that it would lift. And then drive it around a little bit and feel how that tractor drives around with that amount of weight on it. That being said, we sell Branson tractors as well. And our Branson tractors will typically spec on the loader for right around 2,000 pounds of a tractor of this size, give or take a few hundred pounds, 22, 23, 2,400 pounds. The same exact scenario comes in. The loader is built heavier on the Branson tractor than on the Mahindra tractor. The rear end ain't built a whole lot heavier, and the tractor still comes off the ground. So yes, granted, the loader might be able to lift it, but the rear end of the tractor still won't stay on the ground without doing the ballasting to it. We've got to put fluid in that rear end. We've got to put some weight on the back end. We've got to have something back there to hold this back to make this tractor somewhat stable to be able to handle that. So then the question comes in, am I buying a big enough tractor? There's two schools of thought to that. There's guys that will tell you, no, if you weight this tractor, it will do everything that you want it to do and then some. Then the next guy will come in and tell you that you need to buy a big enough tractor that's big enough to handle the weight that you want it to handle without ballasting it, empty. So that when you do put some ballast in it, now you know this thing's gonna go, or it's not gonna go anywhere. And on this one here that we might be running a little bit on the sketchy side, I tend to lean towards that second school of thought a little bit. If you're having to buy a tractor like this, and we're having to ballast it to the hilt, and to get you to even be able to somewhat handle that capacity, we know it's gonna give you front end problems eventually. Whether it be in a year, 10 years, 20 years, you are gonna do some work on that front end. Will you do work on a big tractor? Of course, there's gonna be stuff that breaks on a big tractor as well, but not near as much as what you're gonna see on a little tractor like this when you push them up to that upper end of that capacity all the time. Am I saying that a guy that has the tractor and has to lift one bale a year, does he need to go and buy him a 100 horsepower tractor? Obviously not. That is not price effective. It's not going to be anything that's going to fall into that guy's train of thought. But a guy that is going to be doing a little bit of hay and is going to be pushing them loaders, he does need to look at the options of going up to that next size bigger. And that next size bigger is sometimes where Mahindra can really stand out from some of our other competition as far as what the price of that tractor can be to get you into a big enough tractor to do what you want it to do. That being said, we got lots of customers even that will go out and they use this size of tractor. They lift those bales, they feed bales, and they get along just fine with that. But I am talking to the customer that is planning on going out and doing a lot of that type of work, and that's the only thing you're planning on doing. I think you should look up to that little bit bigger tractor. But then a guy will tell me, well, I can only afford so much. And believe me, I understand that. I understand that your checkbook can only spend so much money, and you've got to make that decision on, do I bite the bullet and extend myself too far to try to get what I need, or do I try to get by with what I can afford? That's a very sticky wicket that a lot of people have to deal with. But that being said, if a guy can at all figure out how to swing that and step that up to that next size bigger tractor, I don't think you'll ever be dissatisfied that you did that. I think you might be dissatisfied sometimes when you go to a smaller tractor trying to push it up to that higher end. I think you will definitely find some limitations, and I think you'll definitely find some performance issues that you weren't exactly anticipating, whether it be steering, whether it be tire sidewalls, front end problems, loader frame problems, stuff like that that you weren't exactly anticipating when you originally stepped out and bought the tractor that you were looking at. So long story short, I just wanted to show somebody a real easy way of knowing. I wanted you to understand what the tractors, what they spec, and what the difference of actually what the capacity is and what it's going to be. We are going to come back, we're going to go fill the tires on that tractor, and then we're going to come back and lift this exact same tank of water, and then I'm going to show you, when I just kind of bounce that loader a little bit, what the difference in that tractor is, because it's a big one. We'll be back in a bit. All right, so this is the exact same tractor that we had here just a few minutes ago. that did not have fluid in it. We've now put fluid in the rear tires of this tractor. It's got rim guard in both of the rear tires, and we'll lift this up and you can kind of see the difference with it. The tractor handles itself completely different. Before we put fluid in the tractor, you couldn't hardly run it in two-wheel drive. If you put it in four-wheel drive, you could get it to go, but you had to be real careful. Matter of fact, there's a little hole right back here. When I drove the front tire into that little hole, it wanted to lift the front end up right off the ground on that, just that little bit of a spot. So we put fluid in it and I just went driving it around, and it doesn't want to lift the rear end at all. But I did notice if I went down a little bit of a hill and stopped on a hill in two-wheel drive, it didn't want to get going. It wanted to spin, throw it in four-wheel drive, and away it goes. But I mean, completely different acting animal. So I'll show you here with the weight on it, what it does difference when you kind of just lift it up as far as the rear end getting light in the back. Like you did before. Like I said, is it still the best situation? No, but it'll definitely do it.
If you like videos like this, make sure to subscribe.